This meeting is being recorded.
There we go. Good afternoon, everybody. This series of talks is described as Genius Talks. My wonderful, wonderful guest today is Otto Collins. And we're joined too by Otto's son, who's listening in. So that's really, really nice on the live call. I've not
this
done this
could be
before.
a first.
Yeah, it is. It's a first in so many ways. I've not done this before, so it's really exciting.
Yeah.
So let me just quickly introduce Otto. I met Otto, 2-3 months back, something like that, I would say.
Yeah.
We're fairly recent friends, and we connected via Anchor's Jane's coaching school, and I'd signed up. Otto was thinking about it, and we had the most beautiful conversation. And it was clear for both of us we were going to be lifelong friends, whether we were in the school together or not. But there was a really nice connection and just sharing when we chatted. And then Otto did sign up for the school, and we spent some time together, including being late night pizza partners a couple of weeks ago. And when I was listening to Otto talk and share his stories and his journey, I just thought this is perfect for this interview series. So thank you for spending your time and talking with me this afternoon for me, morning for you, I guess.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Good, brilliant. So whatever you're going to say is just going to be so beautiful, Otto, I know that. But just give us a bit of a flavor about your journey and what brought you to the three principles and what you started to see as true.
My journey to the three principles was actually an accident. It was an accident because my journey was I wanted to be a prosperous coach. And there was a question in my mind when Steve Chandler, who's in some circles known as the godfather of coaching, people, the guy who teaches coaches how to be prosperous. He's not doing that so much anymore, but I heard Steve on an interview series. This is way back in about 2015. Steve made a comment. He said, well, the number one thing that you need to do if you want to have a successful and prosperous coaching practice was you have to be a world-class coach. Mm-hmm. And here comes self-doubt, dragging itself right down the sidewalk with me. Am I a world-class coach? I couldn't answer that. And he said, well, there's only two places I recommend people go to become world-class coaches. And one was the University of Santa Monica's spiritual psychology program. It's a master's program. And the other was Michael Neal's Super Coach Academy. And I thought, okay, well, I'll investigate this. Well, my wife, Susie, and we contacted Michael's people and ended up having a conversation with Michael Neal. And we didn't know that, when we signed up, we ended up signing up with Michael for his 9-month Super Coach Academy. We thought it was just about learning how to grow a business and be more prosperous. No, it was a 9-month immersion in the three principles and going deep with what is really true in the world and what's really true in life. And in that 9 months, actually before the 9 months got started, I started an immersion in the three principles. And so I would find myself late at night watching YouTube videos of all the first generation practitioners of the principles, whether it be Dick and Bettinger or George Pransky and on and on and on. But throughout that 9 months, it changed me. And one of the things I saw was that whether I grew my coaching business or not, I was still okay. And that's one of the one of the side benefits of seeing the way that life works is, you have problems, you have challenges, you have disappointments, you have, life happens, Dave. And when you really get to see, oh, um, I'm just caught up in the story of the moment. And what I'm seeing is something that's temporary and it's fleeting, and it is something that is going to pass. And when you really see that there are principles in action in life that about life that doesn't change, it's number one, it's who we are. I can get in more into that, but just when I started to discover that, wow, um, it's just who we are at our core and how we operate, everything seemed to change for me at that point. And I had the gift of 9 months, and I've continued to explore the principles. And there's other people, a lot of other people I study with that I always want to go back to what I'll call. So yeah, I'm very keen to look where is the truth. So that's kind of a filter that I run everything in my world through is, what is true? And so that's where it all stems from for me.
That's amazing. I love it. Yeah, it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So when you say what is truth, just
Yeah.
share a story or something that comes to mind where maybe something appeared to be true, maybe something that was bothering you, and then you realized something maybe in light of some understanding of the principles. So people get a feel for the kind of before and after impact.
Yeah, and I don't even know if this has anything to do with the principles, but one of the things that I see as it's just life changing when you open yourself to seeing that the way you see life and the way you see a particular given moment may not be true. And the best example I think I can give of that is I was in the middle of writing the book Preaching to Monkeys back in 2017, which is a book about my healing journey with my father. And my father and I never had a horrible relationship, but there was misunderstandings and there were things I always wanted to be different about him. Isn't that the way it is with kids and parents and people in our lives? We want stuff to be different about them. And there was this thing that happened when I was, I think, about 13 years old. I was in the 8th grade, and we were living in the nicest house we'd ever lived in, because up until that time my family moved around a lot. And this next door neighbor of ours, her name was Mrs. Dobbs, and she was mean. And in truth, as a young person, I did some things that maybe wasn't very nice. I would throw some orange juice bottles on her porch and bust them, and I would taunt her dogs and different things like that. Typical stuff that a kid would do. And she was also mean. Like my father worked second shift at the foundry that he worked at, and she would be up at 11 o'clock at night spraying her hedges, and it just so happened that she would spray him as he walked in from the car and so forth. And so one day he comes home and he announces that, well, we're going to sell the house and we're going to move. And I had this whole big story that I had created around my father, that he was a wimp. He had let this woman force us into, he'd allowed her and her energy to make us move. And it was all because of this woman and how my father didn't stand up to her. And I had this story going on for 35 years. And so I'm wanting to do a little further research about this story that had bothered me all this time. And so I'm speaking to my mother about all this during the book writing process. And she said something that blew my mind, which was she said, when I asked her, I said, "Well, why did we move?" And she said, "Well, your father moved to protect you." And I said, "What do you mean? He moved to protect me?" And she said, "Yeah, she thought that you were in danger. She He thought that this woman was going to do something to harm you in some way." And it's like, wow. Here it is. One moment you see something one way, and the next moment you see something totally differently. And that's just the way life is until you see it differently, you see it the way you see it. And I had had this story for 35 years about how my father didn't stand up to this woman. We should never have moved. It was a great place, on and on and on. And in an instant, I got it. This had nothing to do with the story that I had created.
You know, it's such a powerful story that you just shared. Like, if people, I'd really encourage people watching this to just, like pause and rewind and go back to the start of that and listen to it again. Because if people just got a sense of that's how it works, that prior to knowing the truth of what happened, you were living in a mental illusion about your father, what it meant about him as a man, what it meant about him as a father, and that's the lens, those are the glasses that you saw
Everything
him
I
through.
saw him through,
Yeah,
it went through that lens.
exactly so. And that's like, so that's who he was for you, right up until something prompted you to investigate for the truth of what was going on. And then so many things, I'm guessing, must have recalibrated in light of seeing what's really happening. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, totally.
Mm.
Because here, instead of seeing this man who was in many ways very strong, very alive, very forceful, full of life energy, instead of seeing him as a somebody that was less than or a wimp or somebody that had allowed people to just run over him, I saw him as coming from total love.
Mm.
And I saw him as doing the and I saw him as in that moment doing what we all do in every single moment. Was his best thinking said to him, "I got to get us out of here."
Yeah.
And that's what always happens.
Mm.
And in that moment, here I am, 13, 14 years old in the eighth grade, have to make new friends, new school, in the middle of the school year. I had all this story around what this meant. And then 35 years later, I have a new story about what it means.
Mm.
And it means that he loved me enough that he would do that.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's just it's staggering on so many levels, isn't it? I loved what you said about how you really acknowledge that your father was also seeing what he thought to be true. Without playing out the other scenario, you guys staying in that house, one would never know whether that was true.
Yeah.
But you could see how one would create the mental illusion that it could be true, that the neighbor, was it Mrs. Dobbs, could be a danger.
Yeah.
You can really see how that would be, and then because it really looked that way, you really would feel that was true, and consequently, you really would act as if that was true.
Yeah.
Totally in a sense, in ignorance of whether that was ever true or not. And that's for me, that's the real power of the principles and understanding the thought feeling connection is that, we are always living in the feeling of our thinking. Always. Not for one second are we not living in that way.
Yeah, and that's literally is so much of the time we get it backwards.
Don't we just?
We get it backwards. It's like this thing happened and it caused me to, have this feeling or whatever. No, we're living in the feeling of our thinking.
Yeah.
It's not the event. I mean, on a very practical level, a few weeks ago, my favorite baseball team, they were playing a game. It was an important game.
Who's your favorite team?
The Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah.
And so I have no idea whether they won or lost this particular game. And in fact, the game was already over when I'm, kind of catching up on the score, catching up on all the things about what happened to it, and I'm upset about it. So I'm upset about this thing that's already happened. So if it was the event that had happened that caused me to be upset, I would have actually been upset 2 days prior when the game actually was being played.
Yeah.
So that's all the evidence I need that I'm always living in the feeling of my thinking. Because otherwise, when this thing had happened, I would have been upset then and not 2 days later when I found out that, because I was in meetings and I couldn't really pay attention to what was going on. And it's like, wow. I mean, it's just so clear that it's not the thing out there that causes me to be upset, causes me to feel pain, causes me to be having a panic attack, or to be upset at my mate or my friend or my family member or whatever. It's 100% something happens. I have a thought about it. And then I think, oh, I'm feeling this way about it. Because you can't have a feeling about something if a thought doesn't precede it.
Wow. That's gold, isn't it? Say that again. You can't.
You can't have a feeling about something if a thought doesn't come first.
It's just. Yes, honestly, I knew this would be gold. There is so much power in that, isn't there? Like just, and I think what's really amazing about this, what's like been true for me, I think, over the years since I was introduced to this, was rather than seeing this as something to go and fix things with, it's seeing the innocence of, right, oh, that's how it works. I get hoodwinked by the idea that I think something is true. My feelings are telling me that it's true because I'm feeling thought in the moment. So now it looks really true because it feels really true. And then at any point, whether it's a moment later, 35 years later, I can have a totally fresh perspective.
Yeah.
Totally new reality. I can see anything differently. And there's such hope in that. There's such power in the simplicity of that. Stuff that could have been bothering you for 35 years.
Yeah.
Gone in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And just to see it. And, so in addition to the coaching work I do, I also work at a bank at this moment.
Mm.
And I had a coworker just look at me so odd a few weeks ago when she was so upset about something that was going on. And I said to her, I said, you know, there is nothing that could ever happen at this bank today that could affect my well-being. I mean, to truly affect my well-being. I mean, who I am. Yeah, somebody could say something that was unkind. The bank could get robbed. All kind of bizarre things could happen. But even that, whatever the worst of the worst is, at a core fundamental level, it can still never affect my well-being as to who I truly am. Beyond the stories, beyond even beyond the physical body, beyond everything. I mean, who I really am, that's totally unaffected by anything.
Mm-hmm. That's so powerful. Yeah, what I really like about what you just shared there is it sometimes people will say to me, oh, so you don't get upset then? Like, too darn right, I get upset.
Yeah,
That doesn't tell me anything about who I am. It tells me that I've got upset thinking in the moment and I'm feeling it.
yeah,
And when I settle down, chances are I might see something new about it, or I may not. Again, it's just how the chips land. It's just sort of the way it is.
yeah.
There's nothing for me to pay attention to in that. And the freedom that comes with that is beyond anything that I could describe for people. It's amazing. So you mentioned there something I just want you to talk about a little bit because I think people are going to hear this and are going to be impacted. Like they're going to be impacted by how you share who you're being on this call and want to talk to you. So just share with us briefly, Otto, please, about the coaching work you're looking to expand and do with people. What is it you see that's really on offer for people through that work?
Well, the work that what I see that's possible for people that people don't see ordinarily is I see that, you used the word freedom a few
Mm,
moments ago. I see that if you really can see, you really take a deep look at and you really get who you are before you came into this body, who you are when you're going to leave this body, who you are outside of any upset thoughts, who you are outside of any labels, any of that kind of thinking. If you really saw the truth of who you are, then anything that would ever happen in your life would literally be just like the wind
mm,
or just like a breeze on a sunny day, meaning it's going to come and sometimes the wind is going to be loud and it's going to be strong and sometimes it's going to be very soft and very gentle, but you're going to be there and you're going to be solid in knowing who you are regardless of what the weather is doing,
mm,
because what's happening out there is the weather. What's happening in here when you really see it is you with the ability to stand in the truth of who you are. And when you can do that, there's a peace that can come over you that will help you to see that you are unaffected by the storms of life. Not that there aren't storms, because there are storms. I've had them in my life and I continue to have them.
mm,
And it doesn't mean that it's a good time while they're having them, but when you see what's really the truth, then you see that it's all temporary. And you can sit in that and you can know this is going to pass. And then what ends up happening is the storms of life, like in my case, I I used to get angry. I used to get really angry, and I still do. I used to get upset, really upset. But these things in life that would happen that would have me upset for days or weeks at a time, I'm now able to just be with them. I mean, just sit in the moment and see the truth. And these things that maybe at one time would have been a really big deal for days or weeks are now minutes or hours,
Mm.
because I see that these things that happen in life, they cannot affect my well-being. It's impossible unless I have a story about them that says otherwise. One of the things I always share with my coaching clients fairly quickly is there's a really simple little thing. It's a fill in the blank template. This means, 2 words, this means. And that's what we're doing all the time, is what this means about me, what this means about this situation, what this means about my possibilities. And we are meaning maker machines. And so when you start to see that you're all good, life may be happening, there may be challenging times at the moment, but when you really see that you're all good, then those storms of life pass so much quicker. The pain is so much less, and your possibilities start to increase just substantially, just really start to generate.
That's so beautiful. Thank you. Otto, how do people reach out to you if they want to connect with you, speak to you, talk about coaching? What's the best way for them to do that?
Couple of ways to do that. Of course, I'm on Facebook. It's at Otto Collins on Facebook. You can send me a message there. Go to my website, ottocollins.com, fill out the contact form, or susieandotto.com, and there's a contact form there as well. So multiple ways to reach me, and I would love to have a conversation with anyone who this conversation is resonating with. And I love to have what I call deep, meaningful conversations, and people's lives can change in an instant, and they do.
Thanks, Otto.
Thank you so much, Dave. Appreciate you.